Here we go. Putting you up. And right now, this meeting is now streaming live on Facebook, just so you know. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Otherworldly Arts Collective Artist Conversation. And today is super special because we have Brett Early, who was the curator and brainchild behind Button Mashers last year that we assisted in kind of putting together at the same time as Safe Word. So for everyone who doesn't know who you are, Brett, can you introduce yourself and a little bit about you?
Sure. My name is Brett Early. I'm a practicing artist and curator here in the Twin Cities. I went to school here in the cities. I graduated with my BFA out of the College of Visual Arts over in St. Paul. Took a big break from doing art for a while, and then, especially in the last about 10 years, really, got back into it, and obviously started working with OAC and a lot of their shows. So we've been frequent collaborators at least for the past, I don't know, 5, 6 years now. So, amidst other things, like I said, I am a practicing artist. I've done commercial work and private work as well.
So just for people who don't know, is that as we've been working with the Unicorn Art Show and Gods and Monsters and our other smaller pop-up shows that we've been doing, kind of a final phase that we wanted to work on was trying to help other artists start their own shows, because granted, it takes a lot of work to make a show, and so
That's true. It does.
we figured that the best thing that we can do is try and help other people do it too, which is what we did with Brett. And so I figured for this artist conversation we would kind of talk about that, because one day when it is safe to gather again, which outlook is good, says the magic 8 ball,
Mm,
that would be something that I think all of us would want to do again, is helping other artists make their own shows.
yes.
So would you mind starting talking about how you thought of Button Masher, like
Sure.
started?
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. Well, obviously, like I said, I had collaborated with OAC, I'd participated in a lot of their show, your guys' shows over the past few years. I think honestly, the only one I missed might have been the first Unicorn Art Show. I think I didn't participate, but otherwise, in general, I've been really excited about submitting, and having work in all the shows have been always well put together, well managed, well attended, all of the above, and so you know I think probably halfway through that, a few years into it, Danielle, you had mentioned that exactly what you were saying before, which was wanting to not only operate as a team that put together shows, but also to be able to facilitate and help other artists do the same thing. And so while I've always enjoyed the themes, the Unicorn Art Show and Gods and Monsters and all the thematic work for those, and being able to find work to make for those, I also wanted to do one myself that had a theme that more aligned with the kind of stuff that I'm into. Not that I'm not into unicorns, not that I'm not into gods and or monsters, or like horror themed things, but more, just something that even fell in even closer to the kind of stuff that I wanted. And to be fair, like I love making artwork, and we can talk about this a little bit later, but like doing thematic things and finding, working on things in a sort of niche or a theme, I think really can be helpful in directing artists do stuff outside of their comfort zone. But point being, I'd done that for a long time, and I really wanted to do one of my own. I mean, obviously, OAC and Danielle in particular had always been extremely encouraging of that. And so, we had kind of bandied it about for a year or two, and then finally came to a point where we had space. I think I was really probably the first deciding factor, was having the ability to, having had worked with enough venues, as it were, that you were able to facilitate both safe word and button mashers at the same time. Originally, I know we talked about this, D, and I don't know, going into too much, but like it might have been possible we were going to do it at two locations, two separate ones. It all ended up working out that we were able to do it with one, which was great for things like cross traffic and things like that. So, but yeah, there was a definitely a lot of conversations sort of leading up to it. I think again a lot of encouragement on your end, and honestly being realistic about it and the amount of work that really needs to go into it and being able to fully commit to that. And I think that's a huge part of it too, because you're not just doing this for yourself. I mean, I don't think anybody curates for themselves. Honestly, I can't imagine it. Right? It's about supporting other artists and doing that. So, but yeah, so we had talked for a while. Finally, couldn't put it together, but I mean, really, we got in the planning aspect of it. Nearly a full year before it ever really came to fruition there. So, I mean, that's a long time. But yeah, we had talked for quite a while about it, and but once we made the decision, we went full bore ahead, and then we did it this. Luckily we sneaked in under the wire on the pandemic, and were able to get it done this last February, and to a I would think, I hope, like most OAC shows, a resounding success, right? So.
Yeah. So I'm gonna point out a couple of things that you were saying about the show, just because that like people probably don't realize some of these things that like when you're like, well, we had to find space.
Sure, yeah. It's more than just like looking around, of course. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So like first off, always support your local galleries. Like even right now during this pandemic, if you are able to like share their posts, share their artists, do what you can, because like even in not a pandemic time, like finding space is so hard. And there's reasons is that when most galleries, they operate as businesses, they are a business first, they're trying to keep their lights on, they have brick and mortar that they have to take care of, and that is so stressful for any small like business owner that like just like once you start going out and you're talking to people and stuff, like we're very thankful for the spaces that we've had, that we've been able to, and this is probably divulging too much, but like we have to write contracts with them
Mhm.
for
Yep.
this, which is what Brett and I had to do.
Yep.
We had to talk to so many humans over and over again, like building managers, people maintenance, like all sorts of things of like what you're allowed to do, what the rules are. So like when you say I need to find space, like I feel like that's
Mhm.
every art curator's like kind of first piece.
For sure.
Because like
Yeah.
there's a difference of finding like, a small coffee shop that can like hold 5 pieces of art versus like how large.
Yeah. I mean that figuring that out also informs so much of the rest of it, the scope of the project, or the scope of the show. Again, like I said, I've been involved with Unicorn Art Show and stuff from the beginning. I mean, as an artist, not as a curator, but seeing going from smaller spaces to bigger spaces and accommodating more and more, and how that shifts that ability to do more and more, but also like again, it informs so much the scope and how much you can do, but also the total work that goes along with it also expands when you're able to get more spaces. I mean, the coffee shops are awesome, and I love small spaces and that, but in a truer gallery sense, yeah, there's so much and so many people and rules and things that you have to think about when going into one of those spaces. It's a lot.
And then now I'm going to tell you one other thing that I'm going to make you expand on that people don't probably understand is time.
Oh yeah. Whew.
So
Sorry, go ahead, D.
it took us a year, but we had been talking about it longer than that, like we had been talking about your show longer than a year, but it took a year to start planning. So
Just
like
a yeah, just a plan and put together, contacts, to reach out to artists to get them kind of to prime the pump, as it were. I mean, that's even months ahead before we ever even were taking submissions or anything like that. I mean, if there's something about, I think this is a little bit of a side, but my biggest thing as an artist and just an adult in general, right, is about managing expectation, I think, um, and setting that forth and setting forth the putting together a show like that. Again, like solidifying space, solidifying, venue, theme, amount, how it's all going to run. If you can set up those expectations beforehand, it helps you out a lot, but also then you don't want to be disappointing people if it falls through, right? Like you have so much of that back end work to make sure that it's going to work, because otherwise it's not just you that falls through. If you're an artist, you submit to a show and you can't end up finishing the work, or time crunch happens, personal things happen, like it's fine. But as a curator setting up a show, there are so many people depending on you to be able to put that together and do it correctly and well, and hopefully to sell their work and talk about their work and promote them, that to have it sort of fall apart midway would be crushing, not just only to yourself but to other people as well. So you really got to take that everybody's into expectations into consideration. So, oh, D, are you muted? Maybe it's me. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, D, I'm sorry, I've lost you there. So I can't quite hear you. Let me check on Facebook. Sure. Oh, sure. Yeah, no problem. I can do that for sure. Again, we had set it up this last February here, and I'll kind of show. Let's get over to photos here. And so yeah, we were able to fill the space. Again, the theme, I think, I don't even know if I touched on that. Again, like obviously with the Unicorn Art Show, Gods and Monsters, again, is kind of a horror themed one, and this one was more of a video game theme, right? It kind of comprised all things video games. And so a lot of kind of fan art, referencing stuff back to video games. We, again, like I said before, we're kind of able to, the space kind of determines how many participants you can have and how much work you can put up. We benefited from, again, a functioning gallery space. This thing was put together. Oh, there you go. I can hear you. Mhm.
Okay.
So, but I mean, again, this is not a coffee shop. Again, nothing wrong with that. I'm just pointing out that there's a difference, right? Like not a coffee shop, not this is a functioning gallery, had movable walls, has lighting already set up. I mean, you benefit from a lot of that kind of going into these spaces, and so so we were really able to take advantage of that and kind of set it up how we wanted. So we had around 60 different artists, from a variety of backgrounds, genders, mediums. Like we were able to cover quite a bit of ground with it, which is, I mean, as a curator, I mean, that makes you really happy, right? To be able to see a broad scope of participants and a broad interest set. You know what I mean? I mean, that's part of it too. I mean, for Button Mashers, I was the sole juror. It was a juried show. I mean, that's another thing you have to consider. Is your show open-ended? Are you just taking submissions? Is there a cap? Is it first come, first serve when people come in? Or is it, like I said, mine, but jury, do you bring in outside jurors? Do you have a panel set up within whatever organization you're already doing? I mean, these are all things that need to be decided ahead of time, because once you start putting out information for artists, and kind of get garner interest in your show, that you need to have on hand. You know what I mean? You'll get asked a myriad of questions about it. That kind of run the gamut. And so knowing those ahead of time can be really helpful, and again, how you're going to run your show and what have you. So but again, we were really lucky with the space that we had there. Like I said, I mean, here you could see there's hanging pedestals, hanging things to hang stuff on, hanging systems. So going into that space, there was a lot of work that we didn't have to do per se. That was nice. I mean, but you're always going to run into having to get more, depending on how many people are going to do 3D pieces? How many people are doing 2D? How big are the pieces? How do you limit stuff? You know what I mean? Like this beautiful piece here, like, but it's, you can see it's huge, right? It's awesome, and amazing. But you definitely have to be like, okay, well, you've taken up this much space now. Like, we want to be accommodating to everybody, but if everybody does, gorgeous oil paintings that are, 4 feet by 5 feet, you're not around a space quick. You know what I mean? So, lots of things to consider. Like I said, I mean, and all of this was decided way beforehand, way beforehand. So, but like I said, I mean, it turned out, that show turned out really well. I think it's really encouraging. I think it'd be hard as a first time curator to fail with how much work there really is behind it to do all that. And if you were to for it to not work, that would be really, I think, pretty tough, pretty crushing. So I'm glad for that. I'm glad it worked out. But I mean, I attest a lot of that to working with OAC again, and having that ability to fall back on people and knowledgeable people when you have questions. So.
So I'm going to stop you because I have a couple of things I want to have you explain. And one of them is equipment. Like this was already a gallery. This was the -1 gallery that was inside the AML Artist Lofts. We did this simultaneously at the same time as an OAC show, which was Safe Word. And there was a reason, was to make sure that there was enough volunteers like across if needed. There was other reasons we were doing it. In some ways it made it more difficult. I think that in the future we probably wouldn't do that because I don't think that we were able to support Brett as much as we wanted to. So he was kind of like, he had to figure out a lot of this stuff on his own. Like,
Sure.
and you realize that like there is the benefits. Let me go back to that equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the reasons that like there's an artist fee to start with, at least like for us, is because like we're like, great, we need to build podiums, we need like hammers, we need all of these things to at least get started. Not all the times when you go into a space this exists. And even I think before that we had to reserve how many podiums we needed
Mm-hmm.
because it's used in other spaces. The lights, gallery hours, paint, all of this stuff. It's like moving into a new house.
Totally. Yeah.
So, and then you talked about the size of stuff,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which like that is always like, I love gigantic pieces of artwork, but I'm
Yeah.
always like,
Same.
where am I going to put you? Like, and even when I start curating and putting pieces in a gallery, like it gets really hard. So, I know that you and I kind of went through this a little bit when you were placing items in this space, but do you remember?
Yeah, I know that lady. Oops, sorry.
Tanya, I love you so much. Tanya is
There
an
we go.
amazing fiber artist.
Yes, amazing. Absolutely. This piece was, I'm sorry for the aside. I apologize. It's
No,
absolutely stunning piece of work. I mean, it was really amazing.
she has made all sorts of different puppets. She's made crazy knitting patterns, dolls, like everything. She also started her own role-playing knitting game,
So good.
which
So good.
Tanya, I'm so sorry. I know that there was a new name, but um, I can only think of the old name right now, which I don't want to say. So, but I'm sure that if she can see this, she'll put it in the comments with everything in there.
Hopefully. Mm-hmm.
But how did you set up where you were going to put everything? How much brain power did you have to put into actually putting those pieces are everywhere?
Sure. I mean, there was again, when we solidified the space, I literally went in, measured all of our wall space, and set a sort of height requirement in terms of we didn't really want to put pieces above a certain height. We don't put them below a certain height. You know what I mean? Not that we couldn't bend those rules. You know what I mean? But but having them in place gave us the ability to sort of craft. I mean, nothing so rigorous as an algorithm, but but give a better idea of at least our square footage, and giving spaces room to breathe, and you know what I mean, and so people can take them in separately, and all that sort of stuff. So we I'd gone in and measured all the space, and then basically divided it up as best I could, saying, hey, again, like knowing I'm going to cap probably at this many artists, because between a many artists and b numbers of works that can equal c sizes, that should fill the space. Now, if we go above and beyond, if we're a little, lacking, we can always just, spread stuff out. If we have too many, again, we managed with, again, pedestals, easels, we can work around it a little bit, but at least we had a framework to work within, and without, that sort of rigorous measurement and thought beforehand, it's a slippery slope. Like it could go downhill really fast. So to answer your question further, like a lot of mental effort goes into this, above and beyond. Now I feel like I want to preface this too, as Dee and I talk about this. I don't want to scare anybody away from doing this. This isn't the point. I want to make sure we're trying to encourage people to do this. I was talking to Dee earlier, and I'm a avid Dungeons and Dragons player, and well, DM mostly, and it's that funny thing of, I'm a dungeon master, and I do that sort of thing a lot for a lot of different people, and the idea is, again, to be encouraging. Like, I not only because I like it, I want to play, and but I want to make sure that maybe if somebody sees me doing it well or able to put it together, that they can then also do it themselves, right? Because there's a lack of that. There just is. I mean, and nobody expects every artist to run out and go, wow, that show was so well put together, now I want to do it. Like, no, that's not. I mean, again, like we all know it's a ton of work, but even if 1 out of 100 does, you know what I mean, that just provides that many more opportunities for artists within, a scene or a city or a theme or whatever, so we want to be encouraging. I think we talk a lot about it, but I mean, it's to be both realistic about the amount of work, but and just thorough, so.
No, when you said that, yes. Yeah. I mean, like why do art? Like when you get down to like some of these very broad questions of like, well, art makes our culture richer. It like we bring up a lot of topics that we talk about, like what is the benefit of having more art shows and more around us? Well, then more artists have things to say. Like the connections get stronger, like all of that. Like, why not make our lives richer and full of like opportunities? And
I mean, I don't mean to be topical, but can you imagine the pandemic without art, right? I mean,
sorry.
it's not good. I mean, in the sense of that everybody's entertainment would go down the toilet, I mean, that's honestly, I mean, that's, if people didn't see the benefit. I mean, and we're talking obviously, I'm referencing commercial artistry, there, whether it's movies or television, that sort of thing, entertainments, websites, all that art that goes into that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's, if it wasn't explicit before that we need that sort of stuff, I mean, I can't imagine how people feel now. But yeah, I think it's a lot of it's having this exposure and having it out there, helps get it away from the sort of hidden aspect, I think, of art. When somebody looks at a label for pasta, you know what I mean, somebody had to put that together. Maybe somebody doesn't say that's art, but I don't know. I mean, it's, there's a lot that goes into all that sort of stuff, and so, having it, very out and in their face, and something that people can see all the time, and the accessibility to do so, I think is increasingly important, to get it out there. So, and giving people the opportunity to as well. I think that's really important. You know what I mean? So that's why I, for one, well, part of the reason, obviously, I mean, it's a little selfish while I set up the show, because again, it was a theme that I wanted to do, but really it's because I like helping people, and I like encouraging people to do more things. So.
Yes, when I did the unicorn art show, I just wanted people to make more unicorns.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like, because like I really like unicorns. Please do them with me,
Yep.
maybe.
Totally.
So
I think it's fine to come from a place of self-serving. Like it really is, because really it becomes, it sort of morphs from this sort of selfish thing to this sort of actually more altruistic thing, as you're putting so much time and effort. And again, to not to, we don't want to beat that dead horse, but I mean, it's a lot of work to putting together a show. So I mean, really, I mean, you can, even if it's a kernel of selfishness at the beginning, trust me, it blooms into something that's way above and beyond that. So
Yes. Now, the next thing I wanted to bring up was, you know, just because you build it doesn't mean that they'll come. You know,
no.
like there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of art shows that they still exist and they still run, but there's no marketing and there's no promotion that happens with it. When you have an art show that has a larger amount of artists, obviously your audience is going to be a little bit larger, right? You could have had button mashers be 5 people.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But we didn't do it that way. We wanted it to have as many people as possible. So just because you had the idea and everything was there, like you did a lot of work on the outside to get it recognized in the paper, to send press releases, to share, to posters. I mean, can you also talk about like those things that you had to do?
Sure. Yeah.
No.
And I'll kind of go back into to I want to you had mentioned earlier about artist fees, and I want to like talk about that a little bit too. And I think like sort of maybe some misconceptions about like what's done with that and stuff. But yes, there was a lot of marketing done. I mean, again, like I can't express the relief I probably had having OAC have my back with that sort of stuff. I mean, not to say that I couldn't send out pressers to the local regs and to, you know what I mean, across websites and stuff like that. I think, if somebody does their due diligence, you can find, you're going to know the avenues per se that you want to kind of put things out into, whether it's, social media or, print media otherwise. But that being said, sure, I can be, Joe Blow, and I can send off an email to, this person in marketing for this print ad, but they don't know who I am. You know what I mean? So having the clout of that behind you. Now, that's not, again, not to be discouraging if somebody is starting, because you have to sort of build those relationships for sure. But I won't argue that it helped having OAC, for example, with me, you know what I mean? And now that I've done it once, like, well, now they know my name and we can go further, and have these other satellite sort of shows or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of work with that, from canvassing with posters and stuff, setting stuff up and around, again, to building, managing social media. I mean, and wow, what a beast that is, doing it on Facebook again, I was able to work in tandem with you guys so that it ended up working out really well. But I mean, even beyond sort of the core team, I mean, there's more people that had to kind of be involved to help out with that, like I said, putting out posters, putting out the word, managing both paid sort of marketing and organic, you know what I mean, like word of mouth sort of stuff, and not solely thinking just one or the other is going to be a one size fits all sort of thing, and again, understanding who you're trying to get that towards, market yourself towards, understanding what sort of audience you want to draw in, and again, this probably gonna sound crass, but getting in people who want to spend money, right? Artists want to sell their work. The more people you can get in, the more eyes on it, the more possibility that sort of is. Now, obviously, like I'm an artist as well. Like I'm not just a curator, like whatever. I make my own artwork, and I want to make it for me. I make my artwork not to make a quick buck, I think, like most artists. But I went to school for illustration, and we were taught. I think there was always kind of a big gulf between practicing artists like painters, sculptors, whatever, and like the illustration department, where it was like, no, we get a work order, sort of, what I'm going to say, and then we fulfill that, right, and get money for that, as opposed to just making a thing and hoping somebody pays you for it, which again is nice. I mean, and if you're good at it and you can put yourself out there, that's awesome. But there's definitely like, I learned a little bit more of that end of it, of okay, well, like, how do I fulfill things, where we were working on a client end sort of thing. And so I think a lot of that informed, to the ability to sort of like market or draw people in, having that sort of education. So
I'm trying to follow some of the comments that were on there. Um, let's see. I don't think that there's exactly a question right now, so I'll
Sure.
just hold off on that. So with the marketing and everything that you had, when you said paid and organic, I mean, that is where some of the artist fees come from. I mean, that's where ours come from too. And I will tell you that, like, to be pretty transparent about that, when other people are doing it, like, I've had a lot of doors slammed in my face.
Mhm.
And like, also, I had to be very humble about it, where, like, there is a couple like press people that I was like, hey, you never respond to me and you never print anything. And like,
Mhm.
the way that I learned how to do a press release was like from somebody like 1,000 years ago. And I was
Mhm.
like, am I doing this wrong? Like, can you please tell me how to do it right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's okay to ask people too,
Mm.
like if they're like, the only reason that I'm not like fulfilling any of your requests, like to put anything in print, is because I made it too challenging for you. Like, please tell me.
Mhm.
But like, I
Without that information, how would you know? Yeah.
I wouldn't, and it's like, there's some, so I'm also going to share an illustration story, is that I had an illustration teacher, and I think it was just a time as technology was flipping over, where like she's like, we're going to teach everyone how to do an illustration faxable sketch. Everybody does faxable sketches. This is how the industry is. It's all about faxable sketches. And our class was like, why wouldn't you just email it? And she's like, faxable sketch. And we spent an entire semester doing faxable sketches,
Sure. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I never used. It was not important. And like, even now, like, unfortunately, the city pages is not what it was,
Yep.
which is
Rest in
like,
power. Mhm.
they've always been a huge support system for us, and they were amazing humans, and they made sure to cover so many artists. And I
Yep.
really hope that,
Yes.
like, you know I know that they're still operating online. It's totally worth going and taking a look at what they're doing. Like, you know
Yeah.
they're not visual artists, but a lot of them are writers. Follow them, do what you can, and see where they're going.
Agreed.
um but anyways, like, they were one of the first people that wrote back that was like, can you reword this differently? Like, can you make my life easier?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
thank you.
And
Yes,
yes.
I'll do that. Whatever you need. Like, I want you to promote this show.
Yeah, and that's something to strive for too. I think, I mean, again, either as a private artist or a curator, you know what I mean, making sure whoever you're working with, I mean, being as amenable, as possible. So for sure. And don't worry about asking. You know what I mean. Worst is that somebody can say no. Now I know that's a big fear for I think a lot of people. But you can. This is where we'll weirdly get into like dad advice, but you can get a lot farther I think in life by just asking because if you're not afraid of people saying no, then you know what I mean. Like you'll get the information you need faster. It'll help you out. It'll help other people out. And again, back to managing expectations. Like you could, if you have the expectation that it's possible that somebody will say no, and that's okay, then then you can move forward and do better. Once you have all the information you need. So.
And one thing that I wanted to add to all of that too is that the artists themselves have their own, like, um, essentially like target audience. Like, if you're an artist and you've been an artist for a while, you have an audience, you have your own support, and the artist individual sharing too is extremely important.
Yeah, I mean that's huge on that organic end. I mean that's what I mean. You have that that subset of people that either maybe buy your work or at least at very least support it again, and that's huge. I mean that's you see it all the time on social media. You know what I mean that maybe you can't afford to help somebody by buying work right now, but I mean a share, a tweet. I'm an old man. I'm not on Twitter, but I hear it helps. Um,
Not an
so.
old man.
I know, but I feel like it. Um, the anything like that though. I mean, it can be so helpful. Because you're just putting eyes in front of it. Again, I mean, it's just that sort of organic reach that can't be manufactured. You know what I mean? So.
When we go back, and when I should say, we're never going to go back, we're going to adapt and we're going to move forward, because that's what it is. Um, do you think, what do you think it would be like? This is no right or wrong answer. I'm just curious. You know what I
Just
mean? Like,
just
how would
just
it be different?
speculation. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there already was, I think, a culture of private viewing, for galleries. Whether, usually was sort of this thing of like outside hours, I mean, as buyers would want to come in, I mean, they could be shown around and stuff too. Um, there might be more of that where it's like you just have to have the ability to be open and viewing and not necessarily not everybody's going to be comfortable jamming into one space, just right away or at all or ever. There's plenty of people that were uncomfortable with it when we were all healthy or whatever you want to say, so that would, benefit from being able to see it at a different time. So I think probably we'll see more of that. I would also guess that, I mean, there's obviously a big push for online experiences. Um, I love seeing future forward thinking stuff like Gamma Gallery did the whole sort of in a virtual space thing, and I thought that was really. I mean, we obviously know people over there too that run that, and they did an amazing job, I think, putting that together. That was a really really interesting way of sort of forward thinking too. Again, like I've also during the time here, and this sort of aside, but musically, I've been attending a lot of concerts in Minecraft servers. People that are doing stuff like PC Music, AG Cook, 100 Gex, those guys, and there's a few other like production teams that have been putting together all these concerts and sort of merging this sort of virtual world with live music, or at least, I mean, mostly live music, also with video at the same time, and it's sort of this blurring of lines and everything mashing together. And I really, I mean, they were all the ones I attended were super fun. I mean, between, managing like Discord servers and then, 3D modeling in the server and, Minecraft servers, and then also like video and stuff like, I mean, it's a full sort of sensory experience sort of thing. And I mean, but really amazing and really fun. And I'd love to see more of that on the visual art. And they did actually had, and I remember in one of them, they had on the walls, they had artists, people submit things and then they put it in the virtual space too. And that was really, really fun and amazing. So seeing more of that, and that, to be fair, I think the first one I attended of that was pre-pandemic. I mean, they were doing these things. I mean, that wasn't a requirement of or inability to be able to go out and see things. It was more just like, hey, I'm exploring this space and I'm doing this thing. And I just thought it was really, really fucking cool and interesting. It was really neat. So, but yeah, I would hope to see more of that. So that would be really neat in my book.
You know, you have this acceptance of that space immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And you have this acceptance of like, I was doing it before the pandemic. Like, you obviously really love virtual worlds already, but being
Sure.
somebody who loves video games, where
Mm.
you're like, I have mad respect for what like goes into this already. Um, but that isn't true for everyone. I mean, like, that's like a
Yeah.
hard thing that's existing, is that like, you know, trying to find that balance of like what makes everything online in a art setting um satisfying enough
Sure. Yep.
with everyone.
I think trying to compete with a real world setting is like that hardest hurdle, right? Where they are, I mean, sort of apples and oranges almost a little bit, you know what I mean? And so trying to, it makes me think of like my favorite vegan meat isn't one that's trying to taste like meat. It's this thing of this, it's this, you get to separate it out, and it's like, no, this is its own thing, and doing these virtually are its own thing. We're not trying to replace that, but more just, and like I said, that Gambit show is a great example of like bridging that sort of like in between, right? Like in that sort of gray space that's in the middle. Um, yeah, technology is a hurdle. I think it always will be. I mean, obviously, I'm a big supporter of the internet as a utility, that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and people having access to that. And I think that the more we can move as a society towards those sort of things, the more easy it is for people like us, or artists and stuff, to sort of move in that direction. Yeah, you're right. I have a predilection or bias, towards that sort of thing, where I already know what I like. I mean, again, it was artists that I like, musicians that I liked already doing things. So it was a really easy transition. Again, as an old man, it was surprisingly an easy transition for me to do that sort of thing. But I could see how that would be sort of difficult for some people. But I mean, it's like the beautiful part about, I think that's sort of the virtual space and stuff, is that you can interact with it any way you want. It's really open to, you can be, like I said, as deep as a participant to being in chat and doing things and involving yourself with the whole experience, or you can remain an observer and just on the outside in the same way you would at a gallery, you know what I mean, that you would go and look at these things. So I think it offers a broad range of experiences. I mean, galleries do, the physical space does as well, but I mean, they both work. I finding that and finding out how to get more people into that space, I think would be a really interesting challenge. And something to look forward to, I think.
I wanted to, because we only have like 15 minutes left.
Oh, sure.
I know it goes so fast.
It does.
I wanted to show the video.
Oh, okay, sure.
Of just the space, which has you kind of talking a little bit
Oh God.
in the background, being like, hey, this is because we do like videos before in like our artist group to make sure that like all the artwork is correct.
Mm-hmm.
And there's reasons. I started doing that because I've hung artwork upside down. Things were missing. Something is just not right. So like I started doing that years ago to be like, right before the show opens, here's a video.
The dry run, yeah.
Yeah, and I have the button mashers one that I wanted to show everybody,
sure,
just to get an idea of like how big the space is.
Oh yeah, sure.
After that, I really want to talk about your own artwork.
Oh, okay. All right, we can. Yeah.
1 second. I'm just bringing it up wherever I put it. Oh no. There we go. Sliding it over to my other screen. Okay. Okay. I will restart it. Thank you for sharing one. Oh,
whatever.
What? He's Juan's always looking out for me. There we go.
Technical advisor.
Yeah, he's the technical advisor. Okay.
I like it.
Bye, everybody. Bye, guys. Yeah, I'm all good. I'll see you guys later.
I'm hearing myself is weird.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to give you warning that I was going to do that, because this is, you're saying goodbye to, like, the show is just hung. You're ready to go home. You got to do the run through to make sure everything's good before open night, which is what this video is.
Oh, totally. I mean, and it's the combination of all that effort. It feels good, you know what I mean, to be able to get everything up and have it looking good and everything. Like you said, labeled correctly. You know what I mean? I mean, that's.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Ran into issues with that too.
Thanks for all your help.
I forgot that you had to put Tanya's piece in a cage.
Yeah, well, yeah. It was I mean, that's another weird consideration too. Like you've got this stuff out in open space. Obviously, we've got, things the artists don't have to worry about is we have, contracts and security concerns and issues, that we all deal with on that back end that, again, that people don't see, that we're, mitigating and making sure that we're taking care of your stuff too, as to the best of our ability. You know what I mean? And I think, artists can feel confident in that sort of stuff. I mean, that's, any show worth its salt is going to, do its best to not only show off its artists and stuff, but also take care of their work, both between putting it up and selling it, and and everybody getting paid and all that sort of stuff, so but yeah, it's a fun sort of end of the pre-show end of the line setting up of stuff there. So
I mean, so this is one of my favorite parts, like you're talking about, like when you finally get to see the entire show. And I always feel like I'm a proud mama with everybody, which like I'm always like, I cannot believe how much work is here. Like you get like so overwhelmed with everybody's artwork where you're just like, oh my God, it happened. Because like I think that every time I do a show, I'm like, I'm going to walk into an empty room by myself with like my crayons, and that's going to be it. And when it finally comes together, it's like the whole time you've just been like so tense and like everything,
Mhm.
like what's happening.
You
And
gotta
then,
unclench your jaw.
yeah, and then you get this second where you actually get to look at people's artwork, and like
Yeah.
we
I
get
mean,
to like, wait,
oh,
what?
sorry.
No, I have other places to go.
I was just gonna say it's sort of. I mean, again, that's that kernel of selfishness. You know what I mean? I mean, there is that. I mean, there's the sort of euphoria might be a little hyperbole, but I mean, it's this like great feeling that you get from being able to finish and accomplish that and put it all together. I mean, the same as I hope again artists have when they finish work and are able to show it at a show. I mean, it's the same, but on a different order of magnitude. It kind of feels like so.
I wanted to just show the Twin Cities Geek as like they were such a big help with the show.
Yep,
They,
they were amazing. Being able to talk to Matt and the author of the article, and uh, put that all together. I mean, he was great. They're big supporters of a lot of the shows locally too and stuff. So I mean, obviously this, I think this was an easy tie-in, right, with video games, right? It's a pretty geeky, nerdy theme, So it's right in their wheelhouse. But still, I mean, again, anybody that goes out to reach out and kind of inform the community about those sort of things, like you got to support them. You know what I mean? So you gotta love that they have all that, and again, they're spending all their time doing this stuff too. It's not exactly like they're getting raking in the big bucks, right? Writing articles there. So I mean, again, this is their love and their joy, and so it's really fun to share in that.
the the Twin Cities Geek has a art section now for anybody that is doing art. So you can always like send them an email to explain what you're doing and share it with them. And Matt's been pretty awesome with a lot of events, and they're still fairly new in their organization, meaning that I mean they've been doing stuff for a while, but like as a website and as a publication, it's pretty new. So is minneapolisart.com. They're still existing right now. They're still looking for advertisement spots. So if like anybody has small businesses that they can advertise there, we highly encourage going that direction because you are supporting a much larger umbrella of artists doing that.
Sure,
And
and that's yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, and that's what we're trying to do here. I mean, again, it's that reaching out and making sure that during this time, during pandemic, whatever. I mean, it's not. I mean, I know we're gonna talk about my personal art. I haven't been producing a bunch, and I don't think the expectation there. Again, managing expectation, right? I harp on that a lot, but I don't put a big onus on myself to make a lot of stuff during this time. But great if you are, and if you are, like there are organizations like OAC or us or Twin Cities Geeks or whatever that'll help you, promote that or do things with it. So especially if you are feeling motivated, like awesome, that's amazing. I hope if you are, like run forward and kind of like again reach out and talk to people like D or I or other people that are organizing this sort of stuff.
So now I'm going to ask you like a personal question spur of the moment.
Sure.
Now that you have done button mashers, are you going to do it again?
Yeah, I mean that's the plan. We again the pandemic has put a big kibosh on so much stuff. So really any sort of organization, even looking at things again, as we discussed earlier, it takes around a year, a little less, I think, probably once you've done it and have everything sort of set up and ready and running to go. Shaves off some of that time, but it's still in general. I mean, you're still talking what 8 months. Probably to get it all together. So currently, obviously, we're still waiting on, again, fingers crossed, vaccines, all that stuff. Once we can do it again, yeah, I mean, that's hopefully the plan is to do it again. Again, working with OAC, we'd love to do that again. There's been, I know there's been some interest from like 2D a couple other people like stuff too that already work in that sphere. So, again, like we'll see where it actually does end up exactly falling. But the idea and the sort of that kernel that the show itself will exist somewhere. Now again, what gallery, where, and what, we don't know. I mean, currently don't have any plans for doing anything online as of yet. But I mean, there are plenty of spaces that are doing that. So button mashers just isn't, I don't think they're quite yet, but maybe in the future. So
Yeah, I mean, doing online has a lot of hurdles with everything. We're still trying to figure it out. When I have any secrets that I can give, I will absolutely give them to you. I mean,
oh
but
man, yeah.
now, again, you've done button mashers. My second question as a curator
Mhm.
is, after doing one show and knowing all the root system that comes with it, would you do another with button mashers?
Like another satellite show, like another Under That Banner or something. Yeah, possibly. I think where so I think I've talked about this a little before with you, D, but like finding a theme is, I know it seems like ludicrous, right? Like video games, like, well, it's not hard, right? Whatever, that's a just pretty broad theme, but it's gotta be, you know what I mean? To both garner interest, niche things are great and fine and awesome. And if you were like, man, I really want to do a Warhammer 40K show, like that sounds cool. Is there enough interest, right, to bring it along and to really make it chug and you know, be able to support the money behind it and all the things, you know what I mean? Again, I still haven't broached on artist fees, but like, you know, having enough participants and enough, you know, going on to really, you know, get it going, like, man, that sounds cool. But I mean, it's really gonna affect, you know, how much you can, space you can fill, where you can go with it, you know, again, like that niche kind of stuff. So there's definitely like would I do another button mashers thing? Yeah, but I definitely have to find something. It's weird. It's like again, finding middle ground of a theme that's both broad enough to garner interest in both artists and you know, attendees, and then but also like focused enough that a lot of people can, again, they're not, you know, it's the thing of like, well, just make anything, you know. It's just actually, well, I mean, that's tough for a lot of artists, you know, myself included. Like, it's having some direction or having you know, being able to point the compass helps out a lot. So yeah, so yes, would I do it? Yes. Would it need to be the right theme? Absolutely. That would have to be almost bar none, besides finding a space like, what does this show represent? What is it supposed to be? What sort of, and what are we trying to accomplish and go for with it, you know, and what kind of theme does that revolve around? So
It makes me happy to hear it, just because that, like, you know, it's it's a lot. It's a lot to put on events like this. So
for
like,
sure.
to hear that you weren't like, you know, excuse my language, but fuck this, and you're just like, flip the table, I'm out, you know, like, you're
I left the country right away, so I didn't, it was fine.
what about
So
that?
I went to Mexico right after. I was like, whatever, I'm on the beach, it's cool, we're good.
Maybe we all
So
just need to do that. We need to be like, as soon as we're done with the show, we just need to like just
highly, 10 out of 10, highly recommend it, highly recommend it. So
So we don't have that much time left. Will you please show your art?
oh, sure. Yeah, I can talk about my work for a minute. I've worked in a variety of mediums, um, and you know, from painting, again, like I went to school, got trained in illustration, but I mean, I ran the yeah, again, you know, I worked in the sculpture studio, while I was in college, the photo studio, the whatever. I was almost a photo major for a minute. Anyways, point being, I've done a lot of different stuff, but mostly, you know, I've done a lot of traditional sort of painting stuff, real kind of super flat, really graphic sort of stuff, and then eventually in the last couple of years, I've really shifted into pixel art, and doing that. It seemed like a kind of a natural transition for me. So here, we'll swap out. We'll get D one more time on here, and then we'll move over to my Instagram here. So. But you know, this was my piece for the Button Mashers show that I did. Again, I mean,
Awesome.
directly referential, you know, to you know, Final Fantasy games and what have you. You know, from I think this was my piece for Gods and Monsters,
I
not this
love
year,
that one.
but the previous year.
Mhm.
Sometimes the compression on it's weird doing digital artwork. Like, and you can't see my space because Well, it's here. I'm looking into it, so it's a little different beast than traditional painting and drawing, which I still, I love doing, but it's a weird uh, uh, cost benefit analysis. I'll say something weird about doing work digitally. It's really kind of nice being able to have the space and like, yeah, I paid to use Adobe products and whatever monthly and what have you, but I mean, I can do it all right here, and that's pretty nice. I still do, some traditional drawing stuff for sure. Some other Illustrator work, uh, working with this is for the drop-in show, and that's the like oh, why am I blanking? That's really bad of me.
Rogue Citizen.
Rogue Citizen, thank you. Yeah, that crew and stuff, and I've done that a few times. This was a piece, and then that ended up on a skateboard for those guys. But yeah, I found that I like nitpicky small stuff works well for me, and I enjoy doing it. And I don't hate it. So I've ended up doing a lot of the sort of pixel artwork. So yeah, that's kind of the vein I've been doing stuff in. Again, like to be fair, most of it is not video game referential. It's just the medium itself. So
yeah. Will you just kind of scroll down? Just show more.
Sure. Yeah.
And the reason that I wanted you to do it is that I'm still trying to have this connection of artwork with human, so that anybody watching, they can be like, oh, that's Brett's work. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
For sure. I think the compression on this is awful, but this is actually a GIF that moves.
Awesome.
So, God, Instagram's awful at this stuff. That's the only tough part about working in pixels and stuff, like, PNGs and JPEGs are just, they just make everything so crunchy. So, yeah, it's
unicorn. That was one of them. Was you made on a tablet that moved and sparkled?
Yeah, that was this one. Yeah, this one was that was a thing. So it was basically a small computer, like a Raspberry Pi, embedded into a frame that played a GIF that like rotated again and again. I actually applied for a grant and stuff. I didn't end up getting it. I was doing stuff on like the not holographic, but oh man, gosh, words by the end of this, I'm bereft of them.
Sorry.
The sort of, the playing cards, you get a baseball card that's 3D and you move it.
Yeah.
I was doing stuff on that stuff, but it's hard to find manufacturers that do it. So then I went from that, which worked really well and I liked. I'm like, well, I wanted to move fully. And so then I went to a GIF, but selling a full computer on a wall gets really expensive. So it was great, and I loved how it turned out and how it all moved. But it was definitely cost prohibitive. So I mean, that's a big part of just being a practicing artist too. You know what I mean? Like doing things that you can afford or whatever, applying for grants and doing things. That goes back to my worst they can do is say no. So I'd always be extremely encouraging. I mean, don't let the devil say otherwise in your ear. Go out and apply for it, because again, worst they can do is say no. And then you have the opportunity and experience of doing things like grant writing and other things. So I'm highly encouraging of everybody to do that, especially in this time. I mean, Minnesota State Arts Board and other people are being extremely encouraging of people to still be making art in these less than ideal times. So
yeah, I was just reading an article about like even artists who don't consider themselves artists, but they practice art. It does so much for us on so many different levels. Like, even if it's paint by number or coloring books or crafting or like cooking, like all of that stuff in any sort of creative capacity is still art.
Yep. I mean, just flexing that muscle is great, but no tea, no shade, no lemonade if you can't. It's all right. So
Yep.
So no worries there. So
well, we are at the end of our time.
Yep.
Is there we made it. Woo! Yay! So is there the one question I usually end with is that if people during this time want to contact you to talk about artwork, what is the best way to contact you? And are you okay with having conversations with people?
Yeah, of course. You can, find me Brett Early on Facebook, obviously. I'm in the, the OAC artist group too there. If other artists want to contact me, through that, they can message me on Facebook. Otherwise, buttonmashersartshow@gmail.com will go direct to me as well. So if there are people that are looking to, I know, again, we're in a strange space and a strange time, but if you are thinking about putting together a show and have any sort of questions on that, please don't hesitate. You can contact, again, buttonmashersartshow@gmail.com. Get a hold of me there, and I'm, especially during this time, I've got some time on my hands to be able to outline stuff for people. So, if they so desire. So.
Thank you, Brett.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Dee.
This is like super good because I don't think we get a chance to talk about stuff like this yet. And so like you're part of my first people of essentially moving into artist conversation, artist business, artist
organization and curation. Yeah, I mean it's an interesting facet that I think a lot of people don't either think they can do or don't even know for steps. And so this is, I think, hopefully this gave shed some light on that, and at least gave them context and let people know that, hey, we're here for this sort of thing if you want to do it further. So
Yay.
Yay.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you.
Okay.
Love you guys. Well, and we'll talk to you everybody soon. Everybody out there, good luck with your art. So